In his novel 1984, George Orwell portrays a dystopian and totalitarian society that resembles the authoritarian military dictatorships, disguised with communism. It is relevant to mention that Orwell fought in the Spanish Civil War with the Republicans against the fascist side. However, Orwell saw that the theoretical idealism of communism was pragmatically twisted and reversed by authoritarian governments characterized by the suppression of individual freedom. In the society portrayed by Orwell in 1984, the party, through the suppression of individuality and freedom, propaganda, language manipulation, and violence, exerts extreme control over the population of Airstrip 1, what used to be Great Britain and now belongs to Oceania.
The first means of coercion that the party exerts to establish hegemony is through the suppression of individuality and freedom. Individuality is severely punished in this society, as through the thought police and the constant harassment of the telescreens and propaganda, the party indoctrinates citizens, making them extreme followers of the party's ideals. The thought police is a repressive state apparatus employed by the party to exert control over the people's minds. At any rate, they could plug in your wire whenever they wanted to. You had to live in the assumption that every sound you made was overheard, and, except in darkness, every movement scrutinized. 6. In fact, they aimed at controlling the thoughts of citizens, and it represented an intrusion into people's minds, as the thought crime, the fact of thinking about committing a crime, implied endless purges, arrests, tortures, imprisonments, and vaporizations. 266, as it was considered the essential crime that contained all others in itself.
He did not do so, however, because he knew that it was useless. Whether he wrote down with Big Brother, or whether he refrained from writing it, made no difference. Whether he went on with the diary, or whether he did not go on with it, made no difference. The thought police would get him just the same. He had committed, would still have committed, even if he had never set pen to paper, the essential crime that contained all others in itself. Thought crime, they called it. Thought crime was not a thing that could be concealed forever. You might dodge successfully for a while, even for years, but sooner or later they were bound to get you. 24.
We can see that another mechanism of control of individuality that the party employs consists of suppressing human emotional and physical feelings related to pleasure. In this society, romances are forgiven, and the party only allows having sex for reproduction purposes once a year. Children will be taken from their mothers at birth, as one takes eggs from a hen. The sex instinct will be eradicated. Procreation will be an annual formality like the renewal of a ration card. 337. Moreover, through the minutes of hate and drugs like the victory gin or cigarettes, the party controls the feelings of the people. They manipulate the people of Oceania, making them believe that they are at war against Eurasia and that the person responsible for that and for their suffering is Goldstein, who has, according to the party, betrayed the government. As usual, the face of Emmanuel Goldstein, the enemy of the people, had flashed onto the screen. There were hisses here and there among the audience. 15. By creating a fictitious enemy, a scapegoat, and through the manipulated propaganda of the exterior reality citizens, i.e. by making up war and changing the information about the past, the population channel their frustration against anyone contrary to the party. Apart from that, through the propagation of the harsh and cheap gin, the party metaphorically sedates the population, avoiding any revolution to happen, and like cigarettes, they are used to manipulate people's desires and needs as freedom gets substituted by drugs. He took down from the shelf a bottle of colorless liquid with a plain white label marked Victory Gin. It gave off a sickly, oily smell as of Chinese rice spirit. Winston poured out nearly a teacupful, nerved himself for a shock, and gulped it down like a dose of medicine. Instantly his face turned scarlet and the water ran out of his eyes. The stuff was like nitric acid, and moreover, in swallowing it one had the sensation of being hit on the back of the head with a rubber club. The next moment, however, the burning in his belly died down and the world began to look more cheerful. 8.
Apart from that, through constant harassment of propaganda, they exerted control over people's life. Though this means the party manipulated people, creating a sense of paranoia and hysteria where everyone could be a traitor. As previously mentioned, the party uses propaganda to create an extreme and shared patriotic feeling, and they replace individuality and personal interests with the party's interest. Through this sense of fear and paranoia created by the constant harassment of propaganda through posters, slogans, and screens, people felt constantly observed, which made it almost impossible to reorganize for a revolution.
He took a 25-cent piece out of his pocket. There, too, in tiny clear lettering, the same slogans were inscribed, and on the other face of the coin the head of Big Brother. Even from the coin the eyes pursued you. On coins, on stamps, on the covers of books, on banners, on posters, and on the wrappings of a cigarette packet, everywhere. Always the eyes watching you and the voice enveloping you. Asleep or awake, working or eating, indoors or out of doors, in the bath or in bed, no escape. Nothing was your own except the few cubic centimeters inside your skull. 34. Aside from manipulating information about reality, another way of manipulation was through newspeak. The aim behind newspeak was to eradicate all the different meanings and words that were against the party's interest. For example, by eliminating the sense of freedom related to liberty over time, the new generations born with newspeak would not question their freedom or the meaning of it, according to what we understand by free, because the party has altered the denotation of the word according to their interest. One clear example of the manipulation of language is the Ministry of Love, where people were tortured and executed, and the Ministry of Peace, which is concerned with war. Apart from eradicating words and concepts, another way of manipulation through language is through doublethink, i.e., by relating two antithetical concepts to transform and twist the meaning of these and manipulate reality. The slogans of the party are precisely this: war is peace, freedom is slavery. Ignorance is strength. 34. Through the association of antithetical elements, the message spread by the party is that war is necessary for peace, and therefore sacrifices are needed, that slavery is a way of freedom, and that to be strong and valuable, ignorance is fundamental. This constant manipulation of reality and language led to an extreme indoctrination of society because information, like language, is power, and words refer to concepts that can be erased through language.
Finally, the last way of establishing hegemonic power over the population is through violence. As I have previously mentioned, it is through violence and coercion that the party establishes control. The party tortured and executed people publicly to remind the rest of the population about the consequences of betraying the party. However, the party made most people usually directly disappear. In the vast majority of cases there was no trial, no report of the arrest. People simply disappeared, always during the night. Your name was removed from the registers, every record of everything you had ever done was wiped out, your one-time existence was denied and then forgotten. You were abolished, annihilated, vaporized was the usual word. 24. To conclude, at the end of the novel, we can see that through brainwashing and torture, Winston breaks down and eventually betrays Julia and the other way around. I believe that the implicit meaning behind this is that authoritarianism, and the absence of individuality, can destroy the most solid relations and emotions, i.e. love, and that even the clever and strong individuals will eventually break down. Therefore, apart from criticizing authoritarianism, I believe that Orwell, through the proles, in a similar way as Tolkien, wanted to imply that minorities are fundamental for any revolution, and to do so, it is necessary to be well organized. However, Orwell also implies that in an authoritarian regime, we should never blindly trust anything or anyone, which he represents through Charrington and O'Brien's betrayal. They both seem sympathetic characters, but in the end, we discover that Charrington, the owner of the antique shop, is a member of the thought police, and O'Brien, who at first seemed to belong to the Brotherhood, is actually a high-rank member of the party.